Hola Unconventionals! We got an email from one of our viewers that lives in Cotacachi, and this is the gist of what he had to say. You're misrepresenting Ecuador and you're paying way too much for everything.
Yeah, well, you know, it's just like your opinion, man. We shared our cost of living in a previous video recently, so I'll put a link to that video right up there above Amelia's head. Here, point to it, Vanna.
Yes, and that's just our cost for various things, and we lived in two of the more expensive areas in Cuenca and here in the coast.
You can certainly live in Ecuador on a lot less than we do, especially if you're outside of Cuenca in the mountain cities. Even around Cuenca, it's less expensive. Mm-hmm. And if you live inland, even just on the other side of the highway from the coast. But if you want to live on the beach side, it's definitely more expensive.
So in this video, we're going to show you what life is like with a lower budget and answer a question we see a lot. Can you really live in Ecuador for $500 a month?
All right, before we dive in though, if you're considering moving to Ecuador or even just visiting here, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell so you get notified about our next videos, because we show you what it's really like to live in Ecuador.
Now let's look at a possible monthly budget for someone who wants to live in Ecuador for $500 a month. And keep in mind, this is for one person. If there's two of you, it will not be double the cost, but you will have an increase in healthcare and food costs.
Yes. All right, Amelia, let's dive in.
Okay.
We're going to start with housing. And you can definitely rent in Ecuador for $300 a month or less.
Yes. An extremely affordable option is to stay at a hostel or rent a private room with a shared kitchen and bath. We had a friend who did that, and she lived in an area in Cuenca and spent about $110 a month, and she really enjoyed living with her family, plus she mastered Spanish.
Yeah, she became totally fluent in Spanish very quickly by living with a Spanish-speaking family, and her room was super nice. She had a corner room with windows that wrapped around and beautiful views of the mountains. The downside, though, is that she had to share a bathroom and the kitchen with the family. She had a tiny little area in the refrigerator for her food.
It's also a nice option if you're single and you're concerned about your safety.
Yeah, and it was in a nice area right by the 12 de Abril Mercado, kind of on the eastern side of Cuenca. If you want to rent your own place, you have three different options: furnished, unfurnished, and semi-furnished. And there is a big difference between each of those. With furnished, you get everything, including linens, towels, the kitchenware like pots and pans and silverware. With semi-furnished, you get appliances only, nothing else in the house, no furniture. With unfurnished, you get nothing, nada, no appliances, no refrigerator, no nothing. Sometimes you don't even have lights.
That's true.
So you have to provide everything. If you're gonna rent a place that's unfurnished, you really need to ship a container or budget several $1,000s to buy all of your appliances and furniture once you get here.
You can do that on the cheap though, because there are consignment stores that sell used goods, and a lot of people have moving sales and sell basically everything they own.
There are other options for renting furnished places that are less expensive. We had some friends that rented a place for around $300 a month in El Centro in Cuenca. It was a one bedroom, didn't have windows, it had a skylight and one staircase that went over the neighbor's kitchen down below, so not exactly the safest option, but it was a very affordable place right in the heart of El Centro. Yep. So it was conveniently located and it was nicely finished.
There are other low-cost areas outside of Cuenca, such as Paute and Azogues. Both are about 45 minutes away from Cuenca, and I believe Paute has an expat community. You
might need a car in those places, but the buses do run between the cities, and I think it's like $1.50. It's actually really cheap to take a bus between those areas.
Other inland or low-cost options that are not on the coast are areas outside of Quito, such as Otavalo, Ibarra, and Cotacachi.
Yeah, those areas are much more affordable, especially in terms of rent and food. You're going to spend a lot less.
There are some low-cost options for rentals here on the coast, and we did an affordable beach rentals tour, which we'll link right up here if you guys want to check that out. One of the places we featured was the Casita in Las Nunez, and that rents for $350 a month.
So it might be a little bit above your budget, but it's also on the beach. So if you move a little bit further away from the beach, you're going to find more affordable options that are small like that. Most of the places we featured in that video were a little bit bigger and closer to the beach. The next thing we're going to talk about is health insurance. And before I do that, though, I wanted to let you know that you can download this spreadsheet, which is part of our Ecuador cost of moving and living calculator I'll put a link in the description and the pinned comment so that you can go sign up for our weekly newsletter. You can opt out at any time, but each Friday I send out some expat news in English based on some current events that are relevant to us expats.
Yes.
All right, health insurance. You can expect to pay about $80 per person. That varies based on whether you smoke and your age. If you're younger, you're going to spend less, and if you're older than us, you're going to spend more. But we spend $156 for the two of us each month on private health insurance.
Yes, and you can do public health insurance through the IESS after you have received your cedula, and we've heard that costs about the same amount of money. The difference is that with the IESS insurance, you don't have the out-of-pocket costs.
Yeah, we have a $100 deductible, we have a $10 copay. With the IESS plan, you have zero copay and 0% that you have to pay. You're covered at 100%. The downside is you have to go to the IESS hospitals, doctors, and pharmacies.
Right.
With private insurance, you can choose your doctor, your hospital, your pharmacy. You can pretty much go wherever you want to.
All right, let's talk about groceries. The most affordable option is to buy everything at the Mercados. We spend about $20 a month per person on our fruits and veggies, and we buy some beans there as well. And it's super, super affordable and delicious.
Yeah, the grocery stores are more expensive, so if you can avoid as much as possible shopping there, then you're going to save even more money. I think one person can realistically live here on about $50 per month just for groceries.
The next cost is transportation, and as JP mentioned earlier, buses are extremely affordable and they are an excellent option, especially since there is public transportation that will take you throughout the entire country.
Yeah, the public buses between the provinces are really cheap. We're talking $6 or $7 to go from Cuenca to Guayaquil.
Yes.
And you can even do some of the busetas for $12 between Cuenca and Guayaquil. And the CLP bus between Guayaquil and Alone, I think is $7, right?
I can't
They may have
remember.
raised their rates during the pandemic because they're not supposed to be as fully occupied. Regardless, it's very affordable to travel in Ecuador using the bus system.
Yes, and if you want to travel throughout the city, I think a bus ride in Cuenca, for example, is 35 cents.
Yeah, and it's 50 cents to go through most of the stretch of coast here along Alone. So if you hop on a bus and go to Montanita or Magral Alto, it's like 50 cents.
Yes. Another cost is the cost of your mobile phone. We have Claro and we pay $20 a month, and that includes data. But we have friends that don't even have a data plan and they just use the free Wi-Fi throughout the country.
Yeah, and you can also do a prepaid plan and just say, I'm going to buy $5 worth of coverage for this month, and that's your budget. And when you run out, you're out. And you don't have to have a mobile phone, but most people do want one because that's how pretty much everyone communicates
Yes.
here.
And WhatsApp is free and it is extremely popular and widely used.
Okay, now on to some potential extras. A lot of rental places come with the utilities included, including internet, so you may not have any extra bills for those things, but some places don't. Ours doesn't. We have to pay for electricity, and if you live in a warmer area, electricity is not usually included because of the cost of air conditioning varies so much based on how cold you like it.
Yes, so we pay $45 a month for our internet plan, but you can definitely get cheaper options.
Yeah, NetLife, who we have, has a $30 per month plan with
Right.
lower bandwidth.
Yes, and we have pay for bottled water here as well, so that's something you might need to factor in. We spend about $20 per month on water. When we lived in Cuenca, we drank the tap water, and we didn't have any problems.
Yeah, a lot of people in Cuenca still buy bottled water, but we like the tap water.
Yeah, so you might want to add that into your budget. Other extras may be the cost of electricity, as JP mentioned, could range anywhere from $20 up to, I don't know, $100. And then propane costs.
Yeah, and propane varies quite a bit because here in our new place here, we spend like $2 or $3 a month on propane. But in Cuenca, we were spending about $15 per month on propane.
Right.
Now we're on to the discretionary items. You don't have to spend money on any of these things if you don't want to, but I'm not sure that it's really realistic.
Right, and the first thing would be eating out. Ecuador has their almuerzos here. I didn't say that very
El
well.
almuerzo.
El
It's
almuerzo.
a traditional Ecuadorian lunch that you can buy at most restaurants, Ecuadorian restaurants. And they usually run between $1.50 and $3, and it's a pretty sizable meal.
Yep. Another thing you might want to consider is free entertainment. Ecuador has a lot of government provided concerts. You can do free walking tours, go to the park. The Ecuador also has workout equipment in the park, so you can go and get a free workout and enjoy the day.
Yeah, and all the museums in Cuenca are free. They're
Right.
open to the public. Some of them do ask for a donation, but that's optional. And the last discretionary expense is clothing and shoes. If you're going to live here for a while, you will probably have to budget something for that. And if you're married, like I am, it's probably going to be like $1 million.
Ha ha ha. We actually do not spend very much money on clothing or shoes, but we have had to replace our athletic shoes a couple times because we walk so much and we have worn them out. The good news is we found a really affordable brand. It's called Olympicus.
Olympicus.
They're made in Brazil and I love them. They're super lightweight. They cost $50. We got them in a mall in Guayaquil.
In Mall del Sol. I'll put a link in the description to that brand in case you want them, because the brands that are more locally made are much more affordable. Brands like Skechers and Nikes are really freaking expensive
They are.
here. Like some of the Nikes that I used to buy in the States for $50 are $120 here.
Yes, but it's nice to know that there are much more affordable options.
To wrap this up, if you are on a really tight budget, you can certainly live in Ecuador on $500 a month or less, especially if you live in one of the cheaper areas.
Right. If you choose a shared room, you could probably cut your expenses by another $100 or $150.
Yeah, and a couple can probably live here on $700 or $800 a month, again, if you live in a smaller place in a cheaper area.
Our goal is to show more of Ecuador, and we will be visiting some of these other locations like Cotacachi and Ibarra, because obviously there's more places to live than Cuenca and Olón.
Yeah, those are not the only two expat-friendly destinations in Ecuador. There's a lot. So hopefully we are no longer misrepresenting Ecuador in our videos.
That's all we have for this video. If you found it helpful, leave us a like, please.
Hope you guys have an unconventional day. We will see you all in our next video. Ciao.
Ciao.